Geometry is the math that provides for structure in space. The geometry that we all took in school was called Euclidean geometry. If you remember, that's a geometry with squares and triangles, circles, pyramids, all these kinds of objects and structure in space. Well, it's very interesting because the Euclidean geometry is what we use to create our world today. The houses, the buildings, even the technology and electronics, etc., all comes down to understanding the geometry of a Euclidean nature, okay? Well, here's the issue. Is there a geometry that makes a tree? Is there a geometry that makes a snail? Yes, there is. And it turns out it's called fractal geometry. It's a very simple equation. But here's the nature of the equation, that you solve the equation and you get an answer. But the neat part is now you take the answer and feed it back into the same equation, solve it again. You get another answer. Take that answer, feed it back in. It's an iteration. It's a repeat of the same pattern over and over again using, guess what? The same original formula. Since you're using the same equation, the patterns in the geometry repeat themselves at higher or lower levels of organization. So if you're trying to understand a pattern at a higher level of organization, then you could go back and look for the same pattern at a lower level of that mathematics, make sense out of it at the lower level, and then take that information and understand the higher level. It comes down to something you've heard your whole life. It's called as above, so below. So basically, it said you can see the structure of the universe in patterns that replicate in self-similar fashion at any level of organization. This very simple one that I work with all the time is cell biology. You can look at the human and say, look at all the functions in this human body. Well, that's very complex, 50 trillion cells. But guess what? In a single nucleated cell in your body, all the functions that you have in your body are already present in a cell. The cell has respiration, digestion, excretion. Cells even have an immune system. It's the same mechanism that's used in the higher organization, which is then a human body. In other words, there's a repetition in the structure from as above to below, not a new age idea, but a fundamental principle and fractal geometry. Now, an interesting point about it is, as far as we know, fractal geometry came into awareness in the 1980s with Mandelbrot. Well, obviously, 5,000 years ago, they obviously knew it as well, which then says, how smart are we, or how smart were the people that gave rise to us? This is an important part for looking at the nature of the Hermetic principles. The principle of vibration is so interesting because everything in the universe is moving all the time. It's always vibrating and moving. When quantum physics first looked at the atom, as the earlier physicists, they saw the physical structures of protons, neutrons, and electrons. But as they started to take it apart, they found out at the very bottom, there wasn't anything physical. It was a vortex of energy. You can visualize energy by taking a rock and dropping it into a pond. Well, the energy of the rock as it hits the water is translated into the pond water. What is the result? Ripples that radiate out, ripples and ripples radiating out. That is the shape of energy. The energy is a force who is shaping matter. It's the energy underneath the water. It's continuously vibrating. Waves and ripples come out of atoms. Atoms are spinning vortexes of energy, and in the process, they make waves, and these ripples go out into space. Everything in the known universe in regard to the physical experience is based on atoms, and all atoms are energy vortices with ripples that radiate out. Atoms are nano-tornadoes. Well, let's consider then the real tornado. It's a spinning vortex of energy. Try and drive your car through a tornado. As you get to the tornado, the force field of that vibration can actually lift up your car and throw it away. Vortices of energies, nano-tornadoes, have force fields to them. I can see a tornado. It's got all the debris and the dirt and the dust that's been picked up by the windstorm and thrown all around. If you take the dirt and dust out of the tornado, It's still an energy force field, even though now you can't see it. An energy force is invisible, but you can feel it because it will push on you, you push on it. That feels physical. As far as we know, the ancient people weren't talking quantum physics, but they obviously knew quantum physics because they understood the nature of the vibration. Even though they live in a world like we live in the world that appears to be physical, this ancient wisdom was built into the Hermetic principles.